Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. We have a special guest with us for the entire episode. Special guest, introduce yourself.
Uh, I'm Paul, and I'm from England.
I was waiting to see if he would introduce himself like, like superheroes, where they give their real name or their alter ego. I was like, I'm
I'm Pit Lane
Lane
Paul.
Paul. But no, just
Well,
Paul.
I have this big problem with James Bond because I just think there's no one in the world would go and say my name is Bond. Joe, in my case, my name is Harris, Paul Harris. Like if you Rob will know, you said that when we grew up, you just got a right hook straight away. I mean, I thought it's go quite nice and easy, really. I thought it'd be a little bit traditional. So yeah, there we go.
Oh,
Well, welcome,
nice,
Paul. Thanks for
nice.
joining us.
No, it's pleasure. The home Grand Prix. It's only fair that I pop up on here.
So before we get into the usual flow, I have a quick question for you, Paul.
Go.
You in your review last week or whenever said that it was your home Grand Prix, but you were going to try to be about as far away from there as possible. Yet, well, you were actually there today. So did something change? What? How come you were there if you planned not to be?
I was there today. I was there today for about probably 1.5 hours. That's
Oh,
all.
ah,
Um, but I
okay.
was also there on Thursday all day, Friday all day, Saturday all day. The moral of this story is sometimes things happen. I don't know if I could say my usual word there, but sometimes things happen. And I had a Finnish guy turn up at my house where we stayed for the weekend and sort of say, "Well, would you come up and do the entire weekend?" To which I can't really say no since he employs me. So, yeah. It was okay, actually. It was actually good fun. It is okay, Silverstone. The traffic this year was absolutely amazing. There was no queues, there was no issues with traffic. You drove straight in, drove straight out. I have no idea what they've done. Um, but yeah,
N-
amazing.
I,
Now,
I
when you
saw
say
that
you,
on.
when you drove straight in, was it this car that you were driving? Like, how did the
Yeah.
helicopter? Did Mister VB, the Finnish gentleman, show up in the chopper and say, "Get in the chopper, we're going to the race"?
Yeah, I mean, chopper in our language means probably something to chopper in your language. So the Instagram post I did was largely played on the word chopper, which means
Did not know
something a
that.
little bit slightly different. Um, but no, we actually had some filming. So there's a comedian, he's sort of getting quite big in America now called Jack Whitehall. And it was like a partnership filming thing for the morning in London. So we took off. We had to leave to go to Silverstone at 7 a.m. Flew at 7:15. Landed in Battersea in London at 7:40, which blew my mind, by the way. 25 minutes to get from Silverstone to the central London, and then 45 minutes sat in traffic to do quarter of a mile to our location. But that's fun. Yeah, we couldn't land on the hotel basically. So yeah, it was good though. It was actually fine. I don't do helicopters often, needless to say, but. Yeah, it's quite a way to travel, actually. It was quite impressive.
So
But I
I've
think it was just. I think it wasn't just you, the hoi polloi that could go in helicopters that had a good experience this year. Because actually, from what I saw online, a lot of people were saying like the shuttle buses in and out of the circuit, everything was like night and day this year compared to previous years. Like they'd done some magical pixie dust to make the traffic go away. So who knows?
Well,
But it seems like they did a good job at Silverstone this year.
well, exactly. We turned up Saturday and, like, we both rode down on motorbikes, me and Valtteri. We sort of stopped at one checkpoint and, like, has today been cancelled? Because there was just no traffic. It was like, we like, blew our minds. Like, there's still, like, I don't know what the actual attendance is, but it was jam-packed. It
it
was
was
still
packed.
been, like, yeah, nearly 400,000 over the weekend. Just where did they park? Like, it was fair play, for all the criticism Silverstone gets. And, it's fantastic to actually see things do well. And I hope people do mention it because it's all right to criticize, kick people when they're down, but when they do well, and that will bring us on to a race review shortly.
Oh, look at you getting us back on track when the sap tries to take us everywhere else. So yes, we will do news and social. Actually, it's quite a lot actually this week, sort of. Brian's been busy-ish in the video vault, and then we got a race weekend to review, but we haven't got one to preview because now we go into some kind of sort of pre summer break where we have like two whole race weekends, oh sorry, empty weekends before we see Spa in
Right.
3 weeks' time. What's going on? Anyway, okay. First part is kind of funny, but it's politics, so I won't spend too much time on it. But Stefano Domenicali, Cali, whatever, however, um, was meeting the UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer this week, and he wanted to say how much F1 had importance on the British economy. And I was like, this is a really weird thing for him to be wanting to ham up. I'm not quite sure why. What he was basically saying was Brexit seems to have screwed up the flow of people and all these visas they now have to apply for. And I wanted to ask you on this one, Paul. Is it not just people? Is it also the logistics of parts like tires coming into the country or car pieces coming out in and out as well? Like, as UK not being part of Europe now, banjaxed a whole bunch of stuff, not just people movement.
I mean, I'm gonna play the racism card very quickly if I can. And the reason I'm going to say that is actually when I'll give it from our point of view first. So when we travel to Europe, we have to, if anyone's travelled around Europe, you go through the EU passport queue. You just go through, scan your passport, and walk on through. Now, if you're from the Great Britain, you've got the Great British passport. You've got to go through all passports. So it can take you sometimes quite a long time to get through airports. So that was the first problem. The issue I have is if anyone comes to the UK, they just come through the same gates as us. So that's, in my opinion, is Europe just being awkward with us, if I'm being honest. But in terms of everything else, yeah. So like, let's start with race trucks. So now there has to be something called a carnet, which is a full description of what is on board your truck. Normally in the EU, you can just drive to the Channel Tunnel, drive over, go to your European things, drive back. It sounds mad, but you could pretty much have anything in your truck. Um, we can all make jokes on the obvious one there from things coming from France, but let's stay clear of that one. But no, you have to have this carnet, and by rights, what you take out of the country has to come back into the country. You can't put something on in Belgium and then bring back to the UK if it wasn't on your carnet outbound. The beauty of that is, and I appreciate you are a leading Formula One global podcast, is that no one really checks F1 trucks because that's not really what Border Force are looking for. So yes, you still have to do it. You have to be completely compliant. But yeah, in terms of F1, that doesn't overly impact us. People, yeah, need visas to come in the country, but it's nothing too significant. It's like everything in the world, it'll be made more of to suit an agenda, I guess, than what's actually a reality. Yeah, you might have to fill in a visa form. We have to fill in a form to get an ESTA to go to the USA. It's exactly the same as what you have to do now to come into the UK. It's really 20 seconds of your life for 3 years. Like, yeah, that's that.
Well, you found the next one, Brian?
I did. And by the way, Paul, the global entry thing that we talked about is so fantastic. We haven't talked since we left Canada. When I went through Montreal, 40 seconds. It was tremendous.
Yeah, well, the beauty of that is Valtteri can't get global entry because Finland didn't go for it. So if we both arrive in America together, I literally can just go sit in the bar and just wait for him. It's honestly, it's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
It is good. You guys do it good over there. To be fair.
I still am confused every time I go through and they just say, you're good to go, Brian. I'm like, okay. Anyway, the next news, we've been talking a lot about Mohammed bin Sulayem and the FIA presidency, and our hopes were dashed when Carlos Sainz Sr. said no thank you. We keep encouraging Susie Wolf to run. She hasn't responded to my tweets and DMs. We'll see if she's ready to do this. But Tim Mayer, the former F1 steward, isn't holding back that he may be interested in the job because he's been saying it's an illusion of leadership, a reign of terror, silence, dissent, and centralized power. He's apparently coming for that presidency job. His pitch is based on three things: transparency, club-first reform, and servant leadership. I'm happy someone's running against him, but I don't know what it's going to mean. It feels like one of those things where you're just shooting everything you got so you can make a name for yourself and then fall woefully short of the machine at the end. But regardless, I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out, and maybe we'll find out a little bit of insight here, or maybe he won't tell us anything, Brian. Keanu Reeves is showcasing, he was there at Silverstone this week to showcase his new Cadillac's Journey to the Grid documentary, which is all brilliant, but what we all want to know is, will the Cadillac Journey have certain Finnish representative driving? Anything you're even allowed to say on that topic, Paul, or you can just say next?
I was lucky enough to be sat next to Keanu Reeves for a short time this week, actually. What can I say on Cadillac? Um, yeah, I mean, no, no. Look, there's a lot of stuff in the press. There's a lot of things going around at the moment. Naturally, we are very strong in our position. There's been talks, there's been interest. Can I sit here now and say that we've signed for them? No. Can I sit here and say that we won't sign for them? No. Can I sit here and say hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks we're all going to know a lot more? I can probably answer yes to that one.
Now,
Okay.
I have a
And,
follow up
go on.
question, which you're welcome to not answer as well. Over the last week, it feels like there's been a hotting up of the Valtteri to Alpine story as well, which is obviously before Cadillac next year. And so as we look at it and as we talk about what that could mean for this season, even it got so big, the rumors that it was on TV, right? Crofty was talking about it, Martin was talking, it was no longer just on the internets. So, two
Do you just
questions.
pluralize the internets?
The net, the web,
I, dr-
dubs.
I dread to think what other version of the internet the Satman looks at. I mean,
Oh yes, it's somewhere. But anyway, so as we talk about that and hear about that, it seems as though they asked Mercedes, can he be released? Is any of that happening too? And is it really to take over Colapinto's spot? Oh, I'm sorry, Colapinto. I'm Colapinto. Will I lose my seat at Alpine?
look, it's they're in an unusual situation, I think, Alpine, and obviously we're going to go into a race review shortly, so I don't want to, they've got a car that's been largely uncompetitive, so they're under a lot of pressure. Flavio's involved. I still stand there. I will never shy from the fact I don't like what they did to Jack Doohan.
Yeah.
Um, I understand bringing Colapinto in to a certain degree, but okay. But then he's got to perform. You've got to come in and do better than what Jack Doohan did. And again, no one knows what's happened during this weekend at Silverstone with Colapinto. We are to review that shortly and tell the listening audience. But all I will say is after this weekend, like we at times are just like, oh God, this isn't happening. Have Flavio? There's no secret that Flavio spoke to Valtteri. He's been in the motorhome. He's been, yeah, of course. But then why wouldn't he? You got to also go look at this on the other hand, is that Valtteri is reserved for Mercedes, McLaren, Williams. There was a chance of an Aston Martin drive if Stroll hadn't have made it purely because Drogovic was away. Obviously we've got the Cadillac thing coming in. Alpine with that. So basically, of what is 11 teams next season, six of those all regard Valtteri as someone they would want driving for them. So for a team like Alpine to have a bit of a let's say driver issue, it would make complete sense for them to inquire about Valtteri. So yeah, they can make a lot more about that than they need to. Will Valtteri drive for Alpine for the rest of the season? Uh, I will say no. But who knows? Who knows what's happened to Silverstone? We don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, talking about people that are engaged in conversations about drivers, Toto fanned the flames, and I don't know if this is just to rile Horner or not, but he confirmed he's engaged in ongoing conversations about trying to sign Max for Red Bull. And I'll steal a little bit of my own joke from later, which is they went so far to entice him this week, they put orange stars on the car this week. They're trying to say that's got something to do with some special AMG limited edition car, but
it's
it
Dutch.
hasn't. It's for the Dutch army.
Let's face it, Max Verstappen is arguably the best driver on our grid right now. If he was, I would like to think that McLaren, Williams, Alpha Tauri, still don't know what they're called, Racing Bulls, whatever they are. I'd like to think all of these teams are probably inquiring about Max Verstappen. None of them are really, are they realistic requests? But he's an excellent driver. Of course, Toto's going to be talking to him, just like every team will probably be having a chat to him. It's just what happens.
Yeah, and talking of chatting, for me, his stock rises when I see stories where they interviewed him about the Timmy torpedo in him last week. And he said, I think every driver makes a mistake like this. No one does it on purpose. So for me, it's not a big deal. It wasn't the weekend that I hoped for. but we just got unlucky. Sometimes you have those weekends. I thought, fair play, Max. They like to paint him as the villain in the press sometimes, and he could have easily come out and sort of laid into Kimmy and said, "What the hell's he doing?" Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Nah, we've all done it.
Yeah.
Fair play, Max."
He's not. I've said this on this pod before. Max Verstappen is not a bad person. He's like the Michael Schumacher of the time. They just want to make him out to be the literally Satan. Actually, completely the opposite. But that's the media. That's their job. At the end of the day, it's like what we're doing here. We can all actually abuse Satman for not drinking a beer. It's what we do. It's literally, if you don't do it, it doesn't make the internet.
Or the internet.
Oh, the internet. In the alternative version of his internet, he did actually match us, and he had one more beer. But we don't live in a fantasy world.
Multiverse. The F1 movie raced to the top of the box office, $140 million on opening weekend. That was $56 million of it from the U.S. A big first day on Friday. I thought it was an excellent movie. I convinced my wife we're going to go see it tonight. She hadn't seen it yet, so I'm going to take her out on a date, and we're going to go watch the movie. And I'm sure she's going to hang out with me and not watch Brad Pitt.
It's either Brad Pitt or Armpit. I don't know which one she's going to be. You know what I mean? I think she's looking at Brad, mate.
You never know. You never know.
Oh man. Someone else, just to finish off kind of quotes from last week, was that Liam Lawson, who, without spoilers for today, maybe didn't have as great a race today as he did in Austria, but he got his best ever position for sixth in the Grand Prix. And he actually basically admitted that he closed his eyes because he thought that Kimi was going to torpedo him out in that whole kind of coming together in the first corner. It was just like, he said, I'm so very, very, very happy. Fernando was behind me. I think he was within DRS for 70 laps today. But somehow, when I saw Kimi coming, I was like, okay, this is over. Just one of those moments where I think, because I think, we've spoken to Valtteri and Jacques Villeneuve on this pod, so we've kind of got driver's eye views. But there's some moments where I think the drivers just go, oh God, and they're just waiting for the impact, and that's race over, and that's where Lawson was. And then he somehow survives that and goes on and gets his best ever finish. So happy days for Liam. Right, do you want to round out the news with whatever you found about testing, Brian?
Yeah, I don't know if I fully understand this because I only saw it on ESPN briefly. But next season, before the 2026 new regs start, the 2026 season will have apparently 3 test sessions instead of one. One in Barcelona, which is not FIA nor F1, but the teams organizing it, and then 2 in Bahrain. So we start in Barcelona with a team-organized testing, obviously new car, new regs. There's a lot to shake out. And then 2 in Bahrain in 2 weekends in a row. Paul, did I get any of that right?
Exactly. I think a lot of it is the last big regulation change we had. We had a thing we all know as porpoising. No one could really get to the bottom of it because you couldn't really do testing, and it was pretty dangerous. So I think they're just sort of trying to get them, give themselves a few extra days just to make sure nothing stupid like that happens again.
Yeah, makes sense.
Fascinating. All right, let's quickly run through the vault so we can get to the weekend. There were a handful of things that are worthy of discussion. And a lot of them revolved around things that I found kind of fun. So number 1, F1 drivers take a U.S. driver's ed test. I'd seen this, and then it was on the Discord a bunch. Lee and others talked about it. It was all right. It was fun. There were odd pairings of drivers, like just non-teammate random combinations of people talking about U.S. driver's ed rules. My favorite part, of course, is when they would talk about things in feet. And all of the drivers were like, mate, I don't know what feet are. And yes, welcome to America. And then we had...
The British drivers should have all understood feet.
They should have. Kimi Antonelli versus Valtteri Bottas. Who wins the F1 Cost Cap Challenge on the SAP channel? That's right. I went to the SAP channel. SAP. It's almost 6 minutes. Paul, were you in this? Were you wearing the What's Next t-shirt on the bus?
No, I remember this day quite well because he was sort of like, I was basically doing his shopping for him when he was doing this filming thing, so I knew it was all happening. But that day it was probably 42, 43 degrees in the desert. That was, I think it was Wednesday before the Grand Prix. Might have been. Anyway, it was hot, so I was delighted to not go.
Well, Crofty was in it, and then Kimi and Valtteri raced to a destination. It was fun. And then finally, Yeah,
It
that's
was
good.
a good video, actually.
Yeah,
It was good.
I liked it. Then the final one, 10 things F1 driver Charles Leclerc can't live without. 10 essentials on the GQ Sports Channel, 9 minutes. They've done a few of these over the years. I always catch them. These are pretty good. Things that are in your bag that you travel with, that the drivers travel with. I will say this, though. It was interesting. The description says F1 star Charles Leclerc joins GQ Sports to reveal his 10 essentials. The Monacan racing driver breaks down his daily essentials. Monegasque, brother. Monegasque. Come on now. And then there's an ongoing debate amongst some of my friends and I on the pronunciation of the sport he and a lot of the drivers like to play. It's not real popular in the U.S. yet. Paddle. And he calls it paddle, and most of the drivers call it paddle. But I have friends here who thinks it's European, and they call it padel. And I'm like, that's wrong. Wrong L. It's paddle, yes? Paul, you're on mute.
I was on mute. I won't lie to you. But I was going to say, you guys call Iraq Iraq. So, and you don't call you don't call an igloo an igloo. So I don't think you've got any way to criticize.
Well, no, I'm just making fun of my friends. I think it's paddle. I'm just making sure I'm right.
100% paddled.
All right. So then Fireball, you're wrong. And then, all right, the Lollipopman was gold. Go watch it. It's always on the weekly recommendations and the best reactions. Any other video news before we close that out?
Close it up.
The reason Paul is here is to talk about the weekend. Rob, kick us off.
Yeah, let's just quickly fly through practice, which will be disappointing to Paul because it's his favourite part of the weekend. Okay, quick livery watch. Rome. I actually wrote, I thought it looked sweet on the McLaren, but the longer the weekend went on, the more I thought they should have committed to the whole thing being chrome rather than just the engine cover. But it was good. I liked the chrome on the back of the McLaren. The racing ball was a bit too arty for me with all the graffiti over it. Another one of these that looks nice in stills and artistic stuff before the race weekend, and as soon as it's in motion, it just looks a mess.
The Japanese Haas.
Yeah. And then we already mentioned Mercedes and their orange stars, which is allegedly to pay tribute to their C111 or 111 cars of the 60s and 70s, whose orange colour is an inspiration to the concept AMG GTXX. And not because they're chasing Max Verstappen.
They kept one of the stars red in honor of Niki Lauda. So they didn't change. One of them stayed red the whole time, and I got to say that was a good job.
And then, not really a lot happened in practice. I could see Paul
Normal.
Surprise. Yeah. We had...
Sorry.
Behrman lost some bodywork. Nobody could work out where it had come from for ages. They spent most of it trying to dissect whether or not there was sponsorship wording on it. It was like, okay, yeah, just watch the replay. It came from Ollie. Then Bortoletto decided to go for a kind of 180 backwards over some bumps. I've never seen bumps and grass completely detach front wheels from suspension like that. When they showed him like a standstill with the wheels missing, I was like, wow, what's he hit? And then they showed him go from one angle, just turn around and go backwards. It looked like the car was made of paper. The wheels just sort of fell off. They showed another angle.
I thought that was really strange. Like, yeah, I sort of agree with you. I mean, don't get me wrong. Suspension on an F1 car is designed to probably not have an impact like that, but to actually cause that damage was just like, oh, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was like, well, where's the rest of the impact? Has it just sort of fallen off like that? But, and then I still don't really know what happened here, but all of a sudden we get the red flag. The next thing we see is Ollie Behrman missing the front of his car. They show a replay and he sort of seemed to like give it full beans going into the pits and then remembered that he needed to stop and then didn't and snatched a wheel and ended up in the barrier. And then he got a 10-place penalty and points on his license for going full beans under the red flag. So what did he do? What did he just floor it trying to get back to the pits? But if he did, why? What's he in such a rush? Does he need the toilet?
Yeah,
did anybody see this? It was just
I genuinely did. I've got the same opinion as you. I actually know. I'm a little bit with you.
It was a red flag, right? And he was not observing the red flag, but he was on the pit lane entry. Yes. And I don't know either. He got 4 penalty points. So whatever he did was egregious. It wasn't like Max ran into George, got 3.
He absolutely floored it when they showed the telemetry coming into the pits like he was trying to set a world land speed record. And of course, on the red flags, you could have marshals or whatever out on track. So, I mean, that's why they've given him the penalty points because, like, what are you doing? And then he kind of took it on the chin. He said, yeah, silly mistake. Okay, whatever.
He looked good this weekend from outside of practice. But when he was on the race, he looked pretty good. And even when he was in quali, he looked pretty good.
Well, which brings us to quali. So, Colapinto, uh, like
Yes.
missing around, he binned it early, just went backwards into the barriers, and then set himself a little mini challenge of how much gravel can I accumulate in my side pods if I decide to drive off road
And
for a
in the
while?
cockpit. Did you see how much was flying into the cockpit with him? Like, dang, that was crazy.
So then he had to pull over, and which kind of red flagged the session. I mean, face value, looking at the people that went out, it isn't really kind of surprised. You got Colapinto, you got Nico Hulkenberg. Obviously, he won't do anything in the race.
Nope.
Lance Stroll,
19th, no way.
Yeah, Lance Stroll, Bortoletto, and Liam Lawson, but which doesn't really tell the whole story because for the last run of quali, we're looking at Lewis just dropping down and hearing him on the radio. Can I go again? And they're like, no. It's like, yeah, I really think I should go again. No. Please, I really want to go again. And then comes the reason. No fuel. And you just heard Lewis go, oh, like he's done. So he just has to sit there and hope. And he just falls dead. He gets in by what? Well, Liam missed it by what? Blink of an eye, I think, from taking Lewis out.
I was shocked. I don't often really fully agree with the commentators when they get really worked up about things. That I felt like a real bad strategy by Ferrari, and I felt like the commentators are right. You got to fuel them just enough for a second lap. You basically promised him, make it or you're out, and that was it. And I mean, why would you put him in that kind of jeopardy?
Yeah, so he was a bit lucky there, but yeah, I mean, obviously low fuel tires, you should be faster. I, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about the race, but all I will say is it's something we'll touch on the race. Sometimes making good decisions can really reward you. Sometimes making bad decisions can really kick you in the backside. And I think they were very, very lucky
Yes.
with that because, well, yeah, I would say no more on that one.
Yeah, and the Ferrari show just was the gift that kept on giving because in Q2 they sent them both out on their first run with obviously the instructions. If you could do a first run that is really terrible that puts you at the bottom of the leaderboards, that would be great. Don't worry, we're going to blitz it on the second run because they came out and I'm sitting there as a Ferrari fan going, what the hell is happening? Where did all of FP123 pace go? I know it's only practice, but FP3 is usually indicative, and Ferrari looked quick round Silverstone. First run of Q2, they're both in the drop zone. And then it was like they went, now for El Master Plan. And they went top of the leaderboard, I think it was pretty much. I think both Ferraris were almost top in the second part of Q2. I'm like, what? How? What is going on at the Ferrari show? But we ended up losing. Oh, go on, Paul.
That could be engine modes, though. I mean, I agree with you. It does seem like they were quick all weekend. They're always quick around Silverstone Ferrari. If you look back through the years, they've always been actually really good. And in terms of that's, yeah, it was weird how all of a sudden they gained this huge amount of pace from nowhere. It was almost like they forgot to turn down. You know about engine modes? It's almost like they forgot to turn engine modes up. It was so bizarre.
Yeah, maybe it was. Someone in the back of the garage went, oh, crap. That's supposed to be in setting 2, not 1, isn't it? Oh, go again, boys. You'll be all right this time.
Oh, we lost Ocon, Albon, Isaac, my man Isaac. Anyway, Yuki and Carlos in Q2. And when the Ferraris found their pace, it was almost like, was it Rocky 3? When he punched with his offhand, he learned how to jab and punch with his offhand. And at that point, it effectively felt like they're like, use your dominant hand now, Ferrari. And they went out there and they did it. And then we get into Q3, which was excellent. Q3 just kept building. And you saw on the first round, you saw McLaren say, you know what? Don't forget about us. We're fast. And then you saw a lot of other people be like, you know what? We're pretty fast too. George is like, excuse me, pardon me. I have a good car too. And then Lewis was like, you know what? I'm interested in sniffing around near the top. And then Charles decided just to scream at himself on the radio throughout the afternoon. So he decided not to party. And you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, Ferraris, McLarens, Max, and George. You got 6 people honestly competing for pole position here, and we'll take Charles out for today's episode. And it's pretty awesome to watch. And then they get to the second round of laps for Q3. And at this point, it's one of those old-fashioned who's going to cross the line last with the best time. And it was phenomenal. Before I get to what actually closed it, what else do you guys want to build up to it? Yeah.
No, I was saying without the mistakes, really, in a nutshell, the final run of quali for me showed that we had, like you say, let's just keep Charles in for the minute because he potentially had the pace. So you had 6 cars going for pole. And what was really going to come down to is who can hook a lap up and cut out the mistakes under pressure. Everybody messed up one aspect of their final run, apart from one driver who absolutely nailed it when it mattered. And that's what great drivers do.
It was Monaco from a year ago, 2 years ago, where he came out and just went purple, purple. In Monaco, I think he was green, purple, purple. But here he went purple, purple. And you're like, oh my God, he's going to do this, isn't he? And you just watched him go, and his time was out, and he's just going around purple, purple. And then he went yellow, but it didn't matter because he went to the top. Man, Max is just, Paul, as you say, he is incredibly good driver. He's a generational talent. We should never forget that, not like anyone ever does. But, yeah, so Max got pole from Oscar. Lando and George on the second row, a British second row. We had the Ferrari lockout of row 3 of Lewis and Charles, so they did a great job being in the top 6 and at the bottom of the top 6. And then I thought it was kind of interesting. We had some rookies. We had Kimi, Ollie, and Fernando, the rookie Fernando, following them home in the Aston Martin. And then the man, the gas man, Pierre Gasly, who's like, you know what? No one's going to talk about me, but I'm going to have one hell of a Saturday and Sunday. Makes it into Q3 10th, and then has a great Sunday out of follow it.
And then the funniest thing, I always love to see when keyboard warriors get it spectacularly wrong, is there was bizarrely, I don't know if you saw it on Saturday evening, this huge outpouring of like hatred towards McLaren team because, oh my gosh, I can't believe you've set the car up for a rain setup. It's like Max has got straight line speed advantage, and why McLaren putting so much stock in the weather forecast? Do you know why? Because Britain. We woke up, and if you see a weather forecast that says rain might be on the way, it's not like I experience over here in New England, where you need to wait until like 3 minutes before it's due to rain to really be sure if it's going to rain because the weather changes in the blink of an eye. It doesn't in England. If it says it's going to rain, it will rain, and it will probably just rain harder than you thought it was going to rain. So when I woke up today and saw pictures from my buddy that was at the Grand Prix and he had his poncho out and umbrellas up, I was like, where are all those people now claiming that McLaren are idiots for going for a wet setup?
How far is Woking from Silverstone?
50 mile, 50, 60 mile.
So close enough where they do know what the weather's like.
Mate, you literally had to have a pair of eyes and look out the window to know that it was going to rain on the Sunday. And like, I completely agree with Rob. It was not a shock. The rain was forecast, and it was wet. One of the most beautiful moments of today was Valtteri leaving to go on a bike ride this morning, and I was just sort of like, "Oh, you're going to be nice and wet, aren't you, when you come back?" And it's so pleasurable to watch someone go and do something and then know they're getting wet when they're doing it and know that he's going to come back grumpy. And I was like, yeah, he would go on these silly bike rides. But actually, in defense of that, we then thought it was going to be realistically, do you have a few showers around, but nothing major. We thought it was going to be dry for the race. But again, we'll continue. It wasn't.
I think, no, because didn't I saw that, was it F2 or F3? A couple of the support races got red flagged because it was like biblical rain. Like the only races that were going on was Noah and his ark against other arks, right? It was just crazy.
Exactly. And you've got to bear in mind, like, for where I am literally now, I'm 6 mile from Silverstone. And we could have had complete blue sky here in Brackley. Then I was watching the F2 race in Silverstone. And like you said, it was like Noah's Ark. It was biblical rain. And I was sat looking outside thinking, well, it's all right here. And then by the same token, we had it when it was raining like crazy here. And so it was very isolated showers. So, again, yeah, I loved it.
So question, Paul, because we get to the race and the rain, and they decide to do the formation lap behind the safety car. What's the point of that? I don't understand. I don't remember that, where they were going to do a standing start. If they're going to do a rolling start, I could see that being the point. But a formation lap behind the safety car before a standing start, They just wanted to
I,
maintain the speed so they wouldn't go off the track. I don't know what the point was.
I have a big problem with this actually, and
With me not
I'm
understanding why they do that?
no. Well, I've got lots of problems. No, right. I don't like. I understand from a driver safety point of view. It's ridiculously dangerous when it rains because you're aquaplane. The car's just but every car was on intermediate tyres and they started behind the safety car. And I think what F1 should do is introduce like a third sort of tyre that caters for really wet conditions rather than having a dry tyre which is slick and you get this like intermediate one. If only they had like full wets that are designed to cope with weather like this. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think what annoys me a little bit is the fact that we have obviously we have these tyres and there's such a reluctance to use them. They'd rather run a race behind the safety car. So I do agree. I thought it was strange. I'm all for driver safety because I mean, as we saw during the race, it was pretty chaotic out there. And in the full wet tires, probably get rid of double the amount of water. I know you're going to sit there and say, well, if it gets rid of double the amount of water, surely it's a better tire to dry the track on. Yes, of course, that is true. But then the double amount of water means less
More
visibility.
spray. Yep.
So you've got you almost got a double-edged sword. But I don't, and I were you, I don't really understand it. It would have been better if they said every car's got to start on full wets and we do a standing start. But then
Yeah.
you didn't really lose anything by it. It's just it's almost nitpicking for nitpicking's sake. But I do agree. I get frustrated with the lack of willingness to use a full wet tire.
I'd almost be at the point now where I just tell Pirelli not to manufacture them. It's a waste of
Yeah,
rubber
totally.
to
Yeah, I
make them
agree.
because they never get used. As soon as it's wet enough for full wets, it means the visibility is too bad, so they won't do it. Which I've
Right.
got no problem with them calling off the race for a safety perspective, but then just stop making the full wets and going through this pretense you're ever going to use them. But anyway, just before we saw the safety car roll out, I will say this is one of the grid walks that I enjoyed the most for a long
Oh,
time.
I missed it.
Um,
Oh
we
man.
had Tom Holland being interviewed by Martin Brundle, and he was so enthusiastic. Spider-Man was so happy to be on the grid that he kept talking. And Martin was trying to get away. And Martin was trying. He's under pressure to keep the interviews rolling. You know he's got somebody in his ear going, "Come on, Martin. Tom's been speaking for too long now. Get away." And Martin does this weird thing where he's edging away. And I'm going to try. You see this on the. You're going to see this on the video, guys. But he's edging away and leaving his arm as close to Tom as he can so that he can keep talking. But I'm trying to go. And then he finally just went and went, "Thanks, Tom," and went. Then we had Jeremy Clarkson, followed by Caleb. He asked Caleb about the weather and immediately got him onto farming talk about how all the crops have been ruined this year and this rain has come too late to save the crops. That was absolute comedy gold for the grid walk. Um, Ian Right, that Paul may have met, was for you, Brian, Arsenal legend, absolute Arsenal legend.
Oh, I
Uh,
don't. I very honestly, guys, you won't get it. I very rarely get starstruck, and I walked into our catering unit today, and I was literally like, "Oh my!" I'll just say, "Oh my God!" There was another word in between that word that everybody sells. But yeah, that's like again for Rob, he's genuinely a god.
we had Hannah Waddingham, who did the national anthem last year, Ted Lasso fame, if you know her. You had a certain topical Mr. Damson Idris, who was there on the grid walk as well, that got flagged down by Martin. And then we had Idris Elba being horned in at the last minute. The band was striking up for the anthem, and Martin was desperate to talk to him. He didn't hear his question the first time, so he asked him to repeat it. He got him to answer, and as the band basically went to strike up his first note, Rundle basically did it. Kill it. They're going to start playing the anthem. So just packed grid walk. Absolutely
Can
loved it.
I also just say, like, a lot of celebrities get a lot of grief on a grid for grid walks for not answering the questions. How beautiful was it for everyone on that grid walk to be engaging, and more of them were starstruck by Martin Brundle. It was so
Yes.
Yeah.
funny. It was like, and it made you feel good, like about just about what everything, the people being there. You could tell people were loving being there. The respect between both parties. I agree, right? It was so good, so good.
But
I
Brian
gotta
didn't
say,
see it, so let's move on.
there's a veiled shot at the American grid walks in there because the American let me try this one more time. The American grid walks are filled with celebrities who don't know why they're there. They don't know F1 and they don't know who Martin is.
So's Monaco. So's
Yeah,
Bahrain.
but it's
So's
different.
Abu Dhabi.
It's different
not,
here because
no,
it's new. It's
not.
embarrassing as an
It
American
isn't.
fan. It's a little
No,
embarrassing.
I disagree.
You're overthinking it, I think.
Yeah, I disagree there. I think the problem with America is it's you get a lot of high class people on it, and the trouble is over in America there's a lot more a lot more protection around people. There's a lot more security around people, and it's almost like if you actually look at many of the grid walks, it's more the security people who are saying don't speak rather than the actual people. So I don't think that's it. I'd say that's not overly fair.
Well, I appreciate that. I think you guys are being nice because when I watch the American ones, I cringe most of the time.
Can I just ask a question? Because obviously, if you guys had the Sky feed, you saying the band struck up when Idris Elba was talking. I don't know what I was watching, but there seems to be like 40 seconds where nothing happened. As though almost like there was no music. There was nothing. Did you have any music?
Yeah, we got. Well, I think I did because I remember hearing like the drum roll at the beginning.
No, nothing. It was about 30 seconds.
And then it cut
You
to
had
silence.
you didn't have God Save
and
the
then
King?
she sang. Yeah. She sang by herself. I don't think she was backed by a band at that point. But I think
No,
they did the rumble at the beginning,
I
unless
didn't.
that's Mandela effect.
I genuinely didn't. I was sat there thinking, oh, they've screwed this up. But no, when you just said that the band was striking up, I was thinking, am I going mad?
I could have sworn because Brundle obviously got a big thing. He probably got a bit of a rollicking in his ear of like tell him to shut up. The anthem starting. But anyway, green lights out, or green lights, red lights, 5 red lights, lights out, whatever it is, lights out and away we go. And I was wanting to see before we got to that point how many of them were going to dive into the pits and would we end up with a Lewis in Hungary situation where everybody went for slicks. But I think we knew from the radio message from Oscar that 3 of the corners at the end of the lap were just still ridiculously wet. So I think we only had Charles, George, Ollie, Bortoletto, and Hadjar decided to pit for slicks rather than go for the inters. And just want to ask, well, I am interested in your opinion, Sap, but ask Paul first. The George one, to give up, what was he, 5th on the grid? Was George 5th or 6th, somewhere around there? Where was George? Where did he line up?
4th.
Yeah, 4th.
Was he 4th? So to give up 4th, like crack position, for a hope that what you've just witnessed on the formation lap isn't really as wet as it looks, that just felt like, I get it for Kimi. He's all the way back there. Anybody who split the strategy with drivers further back, totally get it. George just felt like one heck of a dice roll. What was thinking?
No, I mean, no. 'Cause I can't disagree with you. There were so many. I thought weird decisions during the race with tires, with everything. I thought it was way too early to come in and put dry tires on. But okay, let's look at this on the other hand, and it's shoulda, woulda, coulda. If there would have been a safety car, would that have benefited? I don't know. Genuine question. Then they've been so far back from a pit stop. I agree. I thought it was pretty strange. I won't lie to you. I thought it was a weird gamble.
And we had VSCs come in fast, and while it's not as cheap as a safety car pit stop, you could have taken advantage of that as well. It was curious. I thought it was curious. I do say I love when people bail into the pits and change tires or something before the start. I love open grid boxes in the middle of the grid. It's so bizarre. Just to have George's and Charles 2 in a row open, it felt like the Indy F1 race from a bazillion years ago when you had 6 cars started. Like, look at these empty grid boxes.
Actually, I could tell you that now from a team point of view, it's a nightmare for a team because like you're on the grid and you're getting all of your equipment back from the grid. When all the cars leave, they all go around the formation lap. Then you get back and then you're trying to pack your stuff away. All of a sudden, you're boxing. So you've got crap everywhere in the garage and you've got to go and perform a pit stop, hoping that the crew are there. So it's
never thought of that.
Never thought of that.
Yeah. It's actually like it's a terrible thing from a team point of view. 'Cause you're like, great, like here we go.
I recognize this is also not really the point of this podcast, but the green flag marshal was fantastic. The green flag marshal stood, I don't know if anyone caught this, right in the middle of the back of the grid, like in the middle. Often they walk across and they wave like this. No. This, I think it was a guy. This chap decides he parks right in front of the safety car, or the medical car, excuse me, and he starts waving the flag with this vicious X-type thing. He doesn't move. He doesn't move. 5 red lights, he's still waving. They go out, and then he saunters off. I'm like, bro, you almost got hit by the medical car. That guy was the man.
So anyway, come on.
Didn't see that. That's quite good. Yeah, I didn't see that.
Let's get on to the first sort of 5-6 laps. Threatened a safety car multiple times, but like Brian said, all of them seem to kind of keep getting away with the VSC. We had one of the racing balls went off, but kind of got going again. We had so Lawson turned in on Ocon. Ocon had nowhere to go. Yuki was on the other side, and we had Lawson. That caused him to go off, but he managed to keep on going for a while. Then he came to a halt, didn't he, on the side of the road? But they got rid of him under VSC. Then the VSC ended, and then Bortoletto just looked like he was out. This is definitely a full safety car, and then miraculously unbeaches himself and gets going again. And then we had like another VSC when Bortoletto then was told to retire the car because he had bits hanging off his car everywhere. It's like, this has got to be a full safety car. And then we got another one because it kept going on to VSC, and I was just suddenly thinking, this has got to be mental gymnastics in the pit lane, because every time something happened where on face value, where you saw the image on screen, you're like, oh, that is screaming safety car. And then they had a tractor in the right place, or somebody got going again, or no, it's going to stay VSC. And then VSC ends. Oh, there's another thing. This has got to be a safety. No, VS. That's got to be a nightmare in the garage, Paul, with like, are we going? Are we going to pit? Are we going to do what? It just seemed to go back and forth for about the first 8 laps of just VSCs all over the place.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously then you've got the weather, because is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? If it's like a completely dry race, you don't care. But it would be disastrous being on that pit wall. I can only imagine the conversations that were going on. And like I said, people made some weird decisions during this time with what tires and stuff they did, but. Yeah, when you actually look at all the facts, it's pretty. You're probably brains fried. Those poor engineers probably laying in some bed now, rocking back and forward. Don't blame them. Honestly, and that's why they earn their money. And I'll touch on this a bit more towards the end of the podcast when we know the outcome of the race. But when I say like sometimes making a good decisions at the right time really benefiting. And when I say good decisions, it's not trying to be overly clever. It's just making the right decision at the right time. And I think in those conditions, it's very easy to overthink it and do something really weird. So, yeah, nightmare, basically. Absolute nightmare.
I'm going to put my hand up and apologise to Lance Stroll, because when I saw him go in on lap 7 and come out on softs, I was just then, that's a safety car waiting to happen. There's no way he's going to make it round that wet part of the track. And as we'll fast forward later, that maybe is one of those good decisions that you're referring about. I mean, they just decided to gamble and say, throw him on the softs, even if it rains in a bit, everyone's going to have to pit anyway, so let's see if he can throw in a few stonking lats on softs.
Well, that's the whole thing, isn't it? I sat there and I was a bit like, ugh, what on earth are you doing? But, then like you realise what's actually happening in the race, and he's going to go and put in lap times that are 8-9 seconds a lap quicker than the rest of the field. So by the time he's done 2.5 laps, he's actually made up a pit stop, and now he's actually gaining on everything in front. So, yeah, you again, that was excellent. And again, yeah, someone gets beaten up by a lot of people. I thought he was excellent today.
Yeah, agreed. And it was fascinating, right? Because Kimi boxed under one of the first VSCs, came out ahead of George. So it just shows that strategy didn't work from the formation lap pit. I loved Lewis and Lando fighting at the end of the first lap, the whole end of the first lap, back and forth. Thought that was brilliant. Max was a rally car driver with his low downforce situation. He was sliding all over the place. At one point, he had a 4-wheel slide on, and I'm watching that and thinking, man, it's Fast and the Furious Verstappen drift. Enjoyed that. Like you say, when Lance pitted, I'm sitting there thinking this may actually work, because aren't all the inters going to be cooked when it starts raining in 10 laps? Won't those things be useless by that point? So everybody's going to be boxing again anyway. I didn't think he'd be that much faster, because if you remember, at one point when we got off the second VSC, all of the slick runners were like a 15-second gap behind the inter runners. And so the question was, could they make it up? And the answer obviously was yes, some of them could at least get caught up. Anyway, and the sky starts looking bad. They open DRS, and then Oscar and Max just start going for it. And Oscar takes Max at Stowe. I thought that was brilliant. I couldn't have loved that battle anymore. It was only about a lap, but I thought it was really well done by Oscar. And Max obviously raced defensively, strongly, cleanly, but there was nothing to do with the DRS Open on the McLaren.
Yeah, I thought that was great. It looked like Max was struggling. Then all of a sudden, I think a few laps later, Lando was right up behind him. There was one point where it's almost like in the lap of the gods that it goes one way, where Max is kind of losing it at the same time that Lando was really gaining on him, and the reactions from Lando to probably dab the brakes there, but dab them hard enough that he doesn't spin out in the way, almost collected the back of Max. I can't remember which corner it was coming round, but then Max went off-road racing. Lando was through, and then we're up to about what were we? Kind of about lap 12 here, and the double stack was almost perfect for McLaren. Oscar had just disappeared into the distance once he cleared Max. He built like a 3.5 second gap, which was now perfect for the double stack. In came Oscar, out he goes. In comes Lando. You want the same. Didn't happen. They screwed up the front left. Got stuck for a second and a half or whatever it was, which was enough to give it back to Max when he came out of the pit stop. But it was a great little section of racing that bit.
Yeah.
I like the sort of like leading up to the double stack. 'Cause you're like, are they going to have to send Lando round again? Can Oscar make a big enough gap? So nice choreographed pit stopping there.
And Silverstone being big enough and the weather being localized enough, as we've discussed, it was just coming down on parts of the track like a deluge. You just couldn't see anything. But then there were certain parts where it's like, all right, let's go racing. And the pit stops happened, like you said, 12, 13, so on. And then on 14, it's getting heavy. They call safety car. No one can see anything. And I realized at that point, because the way the pit stops happened, Oscar had built a 13-second gap. 13-second gap over Max, because Lando had come out after Max with the slow pit. 13 seconds he lost because of the safety car. Totally neutralized. And then obviously we'll talk about, certain things that happened in a little bit. But boy, that was some heavy rain. And I like the fact that there were 3 DNFs at this point. Colapinto, his engine wouldn't get out of second gear. We obviously lost Lawson, who turned in on Esteban. And then Bortoletto. And Rob, at this point, says, I think all 3 of those may be in my fantasy team. Cheers.
I was wrong. Hadjar was not.
Just wait. We'll take care of that later.
Just wait. At this point, I was about to say, oh, no, only 2 DNFs, but I didn't bother typing that because it wouldn't be too long before I had 3. So, and we got into a prolonged safety car bit. It felt like it went on for a while, and it was classic driver team radio. Some saying it's too wet, but still visibility is bad. Others saying we can go racing again. Stroll, after his little soft experiment, had rocketed up to 5th at this point to cause Mr. Grumpy Alonso to come on the radio and say, crazy how you never get it right with me. So he was not happy to see his teammate up in 5th. So then we had the safety car restart. George just caught Lewis napping and went straight past him, and then spent a little bit too long in his cockpit celebrating, going, I got Lewis. And then Lewis went flying back past him again and got Ocon all at the same time. Lewis decided to indulge in a buy one, get one free and just go past.
I did like the fact that they had the safety car out because of visibility, and it was so hard to see if you were following close. And they go to the onboard of Isaac, and he runs straight into the back of Kimi because you didn't see the red lights until he was touching them. He could basically reach out and be like, they're the red lights of the car in front of me.
I know I'm an experienced Formula One driver, so I'm allowed this.
You are. It's correct. That's why you're one of the co-hosts.
But when they said there was no visibility, he couldn't see anybody, and then they showed the onboard, there were 2 sets of flashing red lights. There was the flashing red lights way before he hit him. So, okay, those are probably coming from a car. I'm guessing they're the only things that flash red lights on a race circuit. He stayed on the throttle, and then the next time they flashed, they were in his face. Of course, visibility was horrendous.
I didn't see them. I thought in the onboard it looked like spray.
But the first set of flashing red, there were 2 red flashes of the whatever it is, the harvesting or whatever. And I'm like, I wouldn't be allowed. My trousers would not allow me to go that fast in the rain anyway.
No, you can't see.
No, but when it just felt like, yeah, rookie inexperience caught a lot of them out today. The conditions just ate the rookies alive.
Well, it was sad because Isaac was out immediately after the crash, and then Kimi's rear was damaged pretty substantially. He tried to carry on, but it just wasn't going to work.
I'm going to quickly swing on because I know I sent you guys a picture of Ollie Behrman was really the only rookie that was left in the race by this stage. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say that they're inexperienced and they're kids. I think what I'm more going to point the finger to, ironically, is the fact that we go pre-season testing in Bahrain, which is the Middle East, which is notorious for just being warm, sunshine, no rain. So these guys, the first time they really get to drive the car in wet conditions really significantly is over a race weekend, or as it's been with Australia and here in the rain. Um, I don't know. I just think like I get the no testing, I get the no track time, but yeah, you chuck these kids out in the rain. It's not their fault. They just don't get
Yeah.
any practice.
I mean, it was Australia's the first race when Isaac didn't even make it back around the formation lap in the rain.
Yeah,
So
I
exactly
think
to your
it's mental.
point.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's mental. I think there should be some more. And Barcelona is probably warm and sunny. It doesn't always rain, but and you can't go to a track and know it's going to rain. That's not how life works. But and then obviously in the winter where it is wet, it's also cold, so you're not going to get tire temps. So it's not exactly significant, but I don't know. I'd like to see something more to help people coming into the sport
Yeah.
to go into wet
Yeah.
tires.
Then we got the moment that defined the entire outcome of the race, really. Oscar's in charge of a restart. I don't know. I'm going to say that in the cold light of day, I think he's going to. I know he was very upset and didn't want to take responsibility for it in the immediate aftermath. But when they compared the telemetry to show that everyone jumped on, like, so Oscar basically threw the anchors down. Max went past him. This was the safety car restart, and Oscar gets a 10-second penalty for unsafe safety car protocol or whatever it is. And everyone's like saying, oh, British bias because George did this in Canada and didn't get
No.
penalised, and Oscar does it, and they've done it on purpose now to give Lando the win. Small difference. In Canada, because the internet is a brilliant thing, or the internets, and very quickly the telemetry came out. George applied 30 psi of brake and lost whatever it was, however much speed he lost over a period of time, but it wasn't significant. Oscar put 59 psi down and lost 100 miles an hour in about 10 yards. I mean,
And
he properly slammed the brakes.
Another key difference: the safety car in Canada wasn't ending; they finished the race under safety car.
Yes,
The safety car was ending. The race was on. That's a big difference too.
Now, there is this small little thing which I do feel sorry for him, where they've said they called it really, really late to say that the safety car was coming in. So apparently, it's not until the lights go out on the car that Oscar is deemed to be in control of the pack. So if he'd have just braked like that and the safety car was still leading, he probably wouldn't have got anything. Maybe there would have been some erratic behavior behind the safety car, but because he wasn't deemed to be the safety car if the safety car lights were still on, he's claiming that at the exact same moment he decided to put the brakes on to try and get some temperature in his tires, the lights went out, so he instantly got transferred the power of the safety car, so now he gets done for braking.
But it's like
I
it
just
caused
think
a
it's one of those
concertina
things.
problem
all
for
way
the rest,
down.
everyone back. Paul, wasn't it Valtteri and Mugello who was leading and did something kind of similar, and then there was a massive crash at the back as one car slows a little, and then more and more. I love Oscar. We cheer for him wildly on here. It felt like overly aggressive braking. It just looked like the naked eye. It was like, how do you describe pornography? You just know. How do you describe a safety car infringement? That was it.
So sorry.
That's the other side of the internet. That
Oh,
he's
did I
watching,
expose my
Yeah. Don't, you're not
browsing
exposing
history?
anything.
No exposing. Stop.
No. Move on. No.
Abort the pod. Abort the pod.
Call
Hey
the
now.
police. I don't know. Okay. Look, maybe he did wrong, but was it a 10 second? No, I don't. I don't know. I'm going to go back to Barcelona. Max got 10 seconds for on purposely driving into the side of another car. You know, I I sympathise with Oscar a little bit. I'm not just saying this because I like the guy. I'm saying it because I don't know. 10 seconds just seemed like
So
come
you
on,
agree with
guys.
the penalty, but maybe it's excessive. It should have been maybe a 5 rather than a 10, or
Well, I just think there's not a lot of history of him doing it. It's not like I don't think there's anything. My point. I don't think there's anything malicious in what he did. I think it was just more. It was bad judgment. Let's say it was bad judgment. But then Ollie Behrman's get 10 seconds for spinning in the pit lane. I don't know. Like maybe it is worthwhile. I don't know. But I mean, it kind of ruined. I don't know. Did it ruin the race? I don't think it ruined the race. It was a brilliant race, by the way.
did,
Great
yeah.
race.
It it robbed us of maybe a papaya shootout at the front. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And then what it also did was I think Max was still a little bit hot under the collar as he put the beans down too early and spun out.
That's on Max though. It was a separate. There was enough time. There was a corner in between before he really hit the gas.
No,
but I'm just saying, I think
that.
he's still agitated that he's kind of like, can't believe they did that to me, and then round he goes.
I don't know. 10 seconds for me just felt a bit like, come on, like, if you look what I give 10-second penalties for, maybe it was. I don't know. I'm on the fence very much, to be honest with you.
Well, he ended up in 10th after Max did after the spin. The commentator said that'll probably be reviewed. It was. I obviously got 10 seconds. And then as we're kind of, getting back up to speed towards the end of the first lap after the safety car, Ollie Behrman, they cut to him literally going around a corner in the dirt on the road, on the grass. And you're like, how did he end up there? And we didn't see for a couple laps that Yuki basically pushed him straight off the road. And Ollie did a good job not crashing as he navigated sand, gravel, dirt, grass, and made it back on the track. And then someone had the audacity online to say it was an unsafe rejoin with Yuki. I'm like, that's the guy who ran him off. I'm like, he should be allowed to rejoin if it's the guy who runs you off.
He had a shocker again, didn't he, Yuki?
Yeah.
My word.
Yeah.
And then we just sort of got like 5-6 laps that takes us all the way up to lap 29 of just George and Lewis trading places, with each one looking like they were going to get the other and then go after the gas man, but they just seemed to keep taking each other. And whoever was the leader of the two just didn't seem to be able to get a gas man. He was just doing such a good job of being fast enough to keep those guys at bay. So much so that some strange fluid started leaking from all the cars that tried to overtake him, where they left these big trails out behind that coincidentally were the same color as the cars. I have no idea what that was.
Why they did it for a half a second there either. And it was terrible.
What was it supposed to show us? It didn't show anything,
the
really.
Lines they were taking in the corners, I guess? Question?
It just reminded me, have you ever seen the film Tron with the light cycles that leave the big light beam behind them? It was like, what's going on? It
reminded me of when the NHL tried the puck tracer, because new fans were like, I can't see a slap shot, it's too fast. So they put the stupid tracer on, and everyone's like, turn it off or we're never watching again.
I was just quickly going to point out that using the line strange fluid after Brian's admission to watching porn.
I said no such thing.
This podcast is going down the drain.
I said no such thing. For those from work listening, I didn't say that.
Well, you can deny all you like. Anyway, Lewis then finally gets the gas man, who's done this amazing job of holding everybody up. So now Hulk and Lance are off in the distance, dreaming of bigger things. Lewis made quick work for gas man once the DRS was out. Now it looks like George is going to do a quick follow through as well. No, nothing. Just George now just sort of hangs out there for nothing. Then it happens. The moment we're at lap 31 or 2, the moment that will start to build in the crescendo for the final laps. Hulk is all over the back of Lance. Hulk, is it now that he gets him?
Yes.
Hulk gets past Lance. We now have 20 laps with the prospect of the man that has never finished on the podium takes that third spot. But at this point, I'm thinking we've got a pretty rapid Lewis appearing in the background here.
Yes.
I'm wanting this to happen, but
let's lap 35.
I'm not sure.
And Hulk is in the podium positions, and Rob and I are freaking out in the notes. As you say, Lewis is fast. It's an opportunity to kind of see what's going to happen next. Will he hold on to this podium position? We're afraid to type too much about it because all of a sudden Lewis takes Lance real fast. Lance goes from third to fourth to fifth in about a lap and a half. And you're like, uh-oh. And I have no problem. I'd love to see Lewis on the podium at his home race in his new team. Like, that'd be brilliant. But Hulk, this is the Hulk. It's been 473 years with no podiums.
I was so conflicted. I'm a Ferrari fan. I'm British with Lewis there. I'm watching a British Lewis in a Ferrari hunt down Hulk, and my head is going, and my heart are going, please don't let it happen. Please don't let it happen. Come on, Hulk. And it just sort of like Lewis is there saying, right, I think we're going to have crossover to slicks in kind of 5 to 10 laps. Charles then suddenly decides that he's not getting any airtime anymore, so now he has to start dive bombing all the Williams up the inside of corners.
He's like, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pass every Williams on the inside of a corner. He takes Albon, and you're like, wow. Like, I actually grimaced as I saw him doing, like, ooh. And then they showed the replay, and it made me do that again. And then the best part is when he takes signs later, he bounces off a curb. He hits the curbing and goes up in the air and takes Carlos, and was completely out of control. I'm like, Charles, you do you, my friend. You do you today.
And then 39, after the big gamble at the beginning to go and box before lights out for George, decides to go for it again. I guess maybe they were out of tyre allocation. I'm not quite sure. But he boxes, and he's one of the first runners to go for slicks. But he goes for hards, which I think it was about 3 seconds after coming out of the pits. He spins, cuts a corner, and just
goes right through
for George.
Out of maggots, through Beckett's and Chapo. He's like, these don't exist. I'm going to straight line these.
Drives to Paul's house, grabs a cup of coffee, comes back.
This is when they should have had the little line. They should have showed his little line, cut the entirety of the corners. Like, here's the George Russell approach to maggots, Beckett's, and Chappell.
I know, and then everybody's pitting. Lewis comes in and goes on to softs. So then Hulk has to respond and comes in, and he gets a super slow. He's like a 4.6. I'm like, oh my gosh. But then, I don't know, the 1 lap out, 1 lap longer on the Inters, maybe kind of get him a buffer, because he actually comes out 10 seconds up on Lewis, and we're like, hang on a minute, we've got a potential Hulkenberg podium here, because he's made despite the slow pit stop, he's made good time there. Oscar pits and serves his penalty, which means Lando has to go around one more time. Why did they pit, Paul? We're lap 45. The McLarens.
The Inters are still working.
Behind, the Inters are still working. They got 7 laps left.
Everyone going to slicks or sliding
ahead
everywhere.
Or whatever it was. Why did they even gamble? Would Inters fall off that quickly, you think, that they would be in danger of 59-second chase down? Oscar nearly lost it when he came out on the slicks. I mean, that could have been disastrous. I just don't know why gamble for a 1-2 when you're
7 laps left. There were 7 laps left.
Then I was going to say, if there's a safety car, do we have any? Oh, it's a very interesting question. To be honest with you, it's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was. I think it was safe. I don't think there was any issue with them doing a pit stop. Just get the guys round. If there's any issue on track and there's a red flag, and I don't know. I don't know.
I guess if you're right,
the red flag is
or safety car. Yeah. If there's a safety car,
they could change on the red.
The track is But if there's a safety car and the track is drying, and those two are then out front with no gap whatsoever, and they got a pack full of soft runners behind them, then okay, maybe they covered off the safety car. Yeah, okay, I'll take that, Paul. Haas boys went synchronized skating.
Right into each other, took each other out, and they're like, should there be an investigation? And the actual answer was, should anyone care? And then Oscar with the team radio of the year, where he comes out, and even better than when Lando was looking for pace, please help me. Even better than when Charles had wet water in his car, must be the water. Okay, thanks, Brian. He says, I think you think this is unfair. We should swap positions. Well, what do you think Lando's going to think of that? You think Lando's going to say, you know what? You were hard done. You can have the spot back, friend. No.
Do you know what?
I get Oscar's point, but you got to think through the other side, too.
I don't think you do. I don't think Oscar has to worry about thinking the other side. Oscar is a competitive athlete, and all he's basically gone is, hang on, you're telling me you're going to... you might appeal this one because you say the penalty's harsh, so that you don't believe the penalty was true, so swap us back and let us race. It's nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think every top class athlete just throws it out there and just tries for it, because on the 1 in a million chance that the McLaren boys go, yeah, let's swap you back, fine. If they do nothing, oh well, it's a dumb radio message. I think Oscar's well within his right just to chance his arm there and see what the teams say. I mean, rightfully, the teams just didn't have any interest in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
But
that would have been bad to do that. I sort of get Oscar a little bit for being sad, but you can't do that as a team.
No, definitely not.
It's never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Lewis had an off somewhere where he had gotten the Hulk in front of him down to about 4.5 seconds, and all of a sudden it was 7 again with about 3 laps to go, and I'm thinking, oh boy, he can hold on to this one. The gas man was being reeled in by Max. Max ended up catching him at the end. But wow. I'm typing in there, this was nuts. 19th to 3rd, Nico Hulkenberg. So exciting to watch. I actually stood up for the last 3 laps. As though my chair was broken. I stood up, and I'm watching this from just cheering, standing up. My friend Adam was texting me. He said, I think I might actually cry. Now, I don't know if he did or not, but the emotion was welling up inside of all of us fans as we could not believe. I was just waiting for him to spin. I was waiting for some Hulkenberg type thing to happen on the last lap, just spin something small. I'm like, please, God, don't let it happen. Oh, amazing.
Well,
and then, go ahead. Sorry.
Here's the thing. Like, like I said, I think I said earlier on, when you make good decisions in F1, good, easy, simple decisions, you can get rewarded. He started from 19th, he finished 3rd. The reason that's quite significant is I was saying to you guys, I've been on this pod and I've slated the strategy of that team a few times when we drove for them. Because sometimes you can try and be overcomplicated. You can try and be a bit stupid with the way you want to work things. And actually, what they did this time was just easy. They didn't try to do nothing flash. They just done an easy strategy. And they really, and he was quite quick, and they really benefited. And there's a lot of great people in our team. I couldn't be any happier. I couldn't be any happier for Nico. For those people who don't have the power of watching the video, I could turn the lights in my house different colors. So now I have it sober green. I was running Ferrari red when we were talking about him, and I could see the guys very confused with this seeming disco that's going on in my house. But I am completely green for sober. I'm so proud of them guys, and we could have had podiums if they'd done things differently with them. I'm really sure of it, and I'm so delighted that they've got that today. I couldn't be any happier.
Do you think is this a Wheatley factor where he's there now, kind of just getting back to the let's not throw Hail Marys, let's not actually just get first downs and do this the right way kind of thing? Or
yeah, well, they got
I
that.
doubt they're talking in NFL speak, but okay.
They've got that. They made some changes in the engineering department as well. Some of the decision makers. And look, I think I said last podcast for Austria. I think it was Austria. When teams fall off and there are points up for grabs, you've got to take every crumb you can find. Yeah. And boy, did they. And again, that's also, I'm going to continue with my green lighting for Lance Stroll. The guy gets kicked pillar to post on social media, and he gets so much abuse. I've always said I don't think Lance is as bad as what people say he is.
Agreed.
I am so happy with him. I really am. And it's been a great day for F1, I think, today, for all of this.
We had just the podium was amazing. We had K-Mag in the garage celebrating his old teammate up there. We had Lando being interviewed and dropping the F-bomb, which was brilliant. What's going through your head? What's going through your head in the last few laps? Well, to be honest, just don't F it up. And you can see the moment he said it. I love it when all TV people have to apologize over and over again. It's like, well, now you're pointing it out to everybody, so everyone's going to rewind if they missed it because you're over apologizing here. But
do you know what? Do you know what? Cutting in with that, and this is where sport is such an amazing thing. If you're offended, then seriously, I don't get it. If you're offended by that, then you're not a human being. Agreed.
The passion he showed, the excitement, it was coursing through his body. I do, though, miss when and this is definitely a British thing, when you call it fruity language. We apologize for the fruity language. I'm like, what? All right, then. So
then, great podium. It's funny watching Hulkenberg not really sure what he needed to do, and I think, didn't Lando have to bring his helmet in because...
Yes.
He'd left it out there. Great podium. Some people were saying, do you think Nico's going to be a little bit disappointed that he finally gets his first podium trophy in his career and it's made of Lego?
No, I don't think he does at all.
I don't think he cares.
I think it was the most emotional podium ever. So Rob and I had the good fortune in 23 in Canada. We saw the winningest podium ever with Fernando, Lewis, Max, and Newey. This time we had a first-time home Grand Prix winner, home team winner in Lando. We had the longest podiumless streak in the history of our sport, broken by Nico Hulkenberg. His whole team wildly celebrating, chanting, the crowd chanting. And we had Oscar in between, who was so frustrated, so angry, so emotional. The three of them, I've never seen three more emotional members of a podium in my life. So I would say that that was, in my humble opinion, the most emotional podium in the history of Formula
I,
One.
I, I agree. So just to kind of round out what that meant, like you say, Lando top step at the podium, 25 points, Oscar second, Hulkenberg third, Hamilton fourth, Max clawed it back to fifth. The Gasman brings it home in sixth.
Wow.
Stroll gets a decent points haul in seventh. Alex Albon, that we didn't ever really see, apart from when he was getting dive bombed by Charles, brought it home in eighth. Fernando Alonso, despite the strategy complaints, brought it home in ninth. And George, with his all over the map weekend of fourth to last to somewhere else, came home for the final point. And what I was kind of left thinking of this was, if we had new viewers to the sport of F1 this week because they'd all been to the cinema to see the F1 movie, so they thought they'd check it out in real life and see what it's all about, boy, oh boy, did they have an introduction to the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I said last week I wasn't blown away by the Austrian race, and I'm not just saying this because I'm obviously British and I love my home race, but Silverstone always delivers. It always gives us something, and I'm gonna. Have I mentioned this before? I don't know, but it's a massive hats off to what is a normal traditional race circuit. None of this street circuit, none of this pathetic things like that. It's just a race where anything can happen. It was magnificent, and I agree totally. If you are watching an F1 movie and think, do you know what? I'll watch a race. Wow, mind blowing.
Agreed. And here's the interesting thing for me. The rain, I don't know how to say this the right way, was the right amount of rain. Meaning, like when you had Brazil last year and the heavens opened and no one could see anything forever, and you got people like the Alpines out of position because of the rain, and they couldn't hold it, and they got passed. That was, like, as I like to say, a gimmick race, where like it just didn't work out, and things happened because of outside factors. This had just the right amount of rain, where it was all driver ability. Did Nico Hulkenberg end up third because of the rain? Yes. Did he have to drive his ass off to hold that spot? Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my point. He got an opportunity, but it wasn't given to him. He had to earn it. And there were tons of great battles.
Yeah, but this goes back to what I was saying earlier on about the rookies. They're not bad. They're not bad drivers. But the point is, they don't. You don't ever get to drive in those conditions. There's a reason why the guys are so good as they are in those conditions, because it's hard as hell to drive. They showed a great thing. I don't know if it was on the Sky UK feed. I don't know what feed you get over there, but they did a great section after the race of like Nico's outlap from the pit lane after his last stop, of how he was really gentle on the corners because obviously he's on dry tires, wet track, and then they were showing some of the other drivers how aggressive they were, and even for me, it's fascinating, you know. And I've done it as long as I have, and yeah, I'll say it again, fair play. I'm so happy for Hulkenberg, I really am.
So around about now, we would normally play the music for King of the Pits. Do we still play it, even though I think we're probably all three of us going to say exactly the same King of the Pits, or do we just say his name in glorious unison? Looking at
Nico
Brian, is he? Oh,
Hulkenberg. I mean, does anyone disagree that
I,
Hulkenberg's king of the pits?
absolutely. I mean, I'd love to give it to Lando for winning his home race. I'd love
Yeah,
to give it to,
I
but
know,
there's just something
I've got to
special
go
about.
Hulkenberg.
All right, so
Yeah.
we all
Gotta
agree.
go.
We don't need the music, but let's do the
Yeah,
music.
I also think Lando's going to go on to win many more races. So, like, yeah, it was special, and I think it is special.
Yeah.
But you know, Hulkenberg. I mean, no one in the world predicted that. So, yeah, 100%.
So then let's talk about the pits, because this may vary.
You're the pits.
By the way, I'd like to thank listener Andy on the Discord for calling me all kinds of names for giving Adrian Newey the pits last week for the second Red Bull car. He really went to town on me. Andy, I still love you, buddy. So the pits. Who would like to go first with their nomination for the pits this week?
I'll let our guest go for his view of the pits.
Oh,
Or if you need time to think, I
no,
already know.
I don't. I don't. I think I know who I'm going to give it to, but I don't want to give it to him. But I've got to go Yuki again. And the reason I've got to go Yuki is, and funny enough, perfect link into your last thing about Andy. I don't believe Newey's designed a bad car. I just think that Red Bull, in theory, designed cars that other drivers can't do. I'm not going to get into this whole conversation, but I stand by that theory that actually I genuinely believe that that second car is bad. But it's sort of the second race in a row where Yuka's almost just crashed into everyone as well. But it's
Yeah.
sort of like, you can have a bad car that you can't drive, but you still got to stop crashing into people. It's not Demolition Derby. That's Derby,
Yeah.
not Derby for.
Yeah, not Derby.
Yes, Derby.
No,
but-
no, I agree. Yuki gets my vote. I mean, he's the only of all the finishers. We had 15 finishers, so we had 5 DNFs. So forget the DNFs. He was the only person not on the lead lap. So he was a lap down. Everyone else, at least in those conditions, managed to finish on the lead lap. So
Well, wasn't
he
he
just-
like 35 seconds behind? Oh, I don't know, P15 or whatever the hell.
well, he was
they were up
15th,
to.
and Charles Leclerc.
Well,
I
hold
don't
on.
know how far behind he was.
Hold on. Charles is actually my pits.
Oh,
So I just, while you mentioned the man, the myth, the legend, how in the world we saw Charles passing number 8 Albon, we saw Charles passing number 12 Sainz, and then we didn't see Charles for a while, and he finishes 10 spots behind his teammate. He was all over the race course. He was way too hard on himself on the radio. It wasn't quite wasn't this one from Baku.
I am stupid. I am stupid.
But I can't air the one he did because it's just all profanity. So I would say the fact that Charles in the Ferrari ends up 14th behind everybody else who finished except Yuki, who I would agree he honorable mention for me. I'm naming Charles as king of the pits, and he wants to say something to me.
Thank you, Brian.
sorry. I was expecting
Oh.
that.
Oh my gosh. It's the only reason you've named him, just so you like stand by shoehorn coming through.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
cool. That's.
But he's 14th in a
God.
Ferrari. I'm sorry, he's my pits.
Okay.
No. I
Okay.
like it.
Well, just to round out the week then, casino games, roulette. We had to pick 6th. It was the gas man. I had Charles. You had Kimmy. So no dice there. Blackjack. I had Charles and Lewis, which scored me 12 points for Lewis's finish. You had Alex and George. So you got 5 points, I believe. So I win that hand. But before I brag too much, in 3-card poker, I had Albon, Hajar, and Sainz. I mean, one of them didn't even finish, and
Right.
the other 2 weren't together.
Yep.
You had Lando, Oscar, and Max. So not only did you get 2 right, you had 2 right in the right order. So it's a hand each on the casino games, which means the overall scores don't move because it's 1 each. From a constructor standpoint, it's getting tight up front now. Lando takes another big bite out of, well, not big, but he takes a bite out of Oscar's lead, so it's down to 8 points now. 234 Oscar, 226 Lando. Max starting to get cut adrift a little bit now on 165, with kind of George kind of creeping up on him. Well, not this week, he lost more points, but 147. Charles back in 5th, Lewis back in 6th, Kimmy in 7th, Alex in 8th, and a certain Nico Hulkenberg rockets up to 9th.
What?
I was just saying as
37
well.
points.
You guys know I've been critical of Lando, especially the first half of the year for some of the mistakes. I think the last 2 or 3 races he's actually been very good. So
Yes.
he seems to be pulling it back quite well. So I think we're in for a ridiculously good season. So
I do. I
Yeah.
was worried that Lando was going to start. If Oscar got a little bit of a gap, I was worried he was going to start sort of beating himself up and then make more mistakes, put himself under pressure, and suddenly he'd be slipping back. But do you know what? He has risen to the challenge in the last 2 races.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
It'd be interesting to see what the gap is going into the break. We've got, 2 more races left?
Yeah, 2 more. My neighbor Drew, who does not listen to the pod, he and I were at the 4th of July parade, and he said, "What was that you were saying that you didn't think Lando had the minerals to withhold withstand the charge of Oscar?" This is before this weekend. This was after Austria. He's like, Lando's looking good. I go, I know he is. So I was clearly wrong there. I would like to point out, we'll get into the constructors. You did the drivers. McLaren, a mile ahead. Ferrari in second, 222. Mercedes, 210 right behind him. If you had said to me halfway through the season, 12 races in, that Nico Hulkenberg for Sauber has 37 points, he alone, a one-man band in green, has more points than Alpine, more points than Haas, more points than Aston Martin, and more points than Racing Bulls, not combined, of course, but just as teams. That is absolute banana-rana insanity. There's no way in the world that could have been true when if you told me that halfway in the season we'd have that happen.
After last year, if he'd have told me that, I'd have probably driven to Chicago somehow and whacked you with a fish for talking nonsense. So fair play. And again, like I said, I'm so pleased for those guys. I'm so pleased for them. It's really good.
Brilliant. It's just such a good haul of points. We're now getting that. I mean, I'm not sure. One result is maybe too soon, but is Williams guaranteed fifth place spot under jeopardy now with the Green Army coming after them? I mean, it's 59 points to 41 now.
Yeah, I think like the last few weekends of Williams have been really disappointing. They started the year really strong. They seem to be going through a bit of I could say a mini crisis. It's going to sound like a footballing term, but they seem to be going through this mini meltdown a little bit, Williams. I don't know. I don't know.
They were happy to finish without they were happy to not get a DNF from an engine overheat. They were like, hey, at least we finished. Alex said that in one of the post-race interviews. The only thing I saw, I'm like, well, that's one way of looking at it. But speaking of finishing, I did not finish well in the fantasy team this week. The British Grand Prix, the top 10, F1 Fantasy Tools, f1fantasytools.com, 271, triple McLaren. There you go. See, I've tried triple McLaren a couple times and then backed out at the wrong time. So good job, Fantasy Tools. Deep Dish and DNFs, Adam, second place. Dirty Side is my track. Dan in third. That's my cousin. Good. He's watched one F1 race, and I can't even deal with this. Box 1, Patrick. Naya F1 team Naya. The Kurdish boy Dahan. Then F1 fantasy tip Sigma Andy. Yank It Back from Australia, Michael. Hammer Time Boys by Michael, a different Michael, and then Lost My V-Carb. Kevin tied for... Oh, there's a big tie. I'm sorry. Oh, man, I didn't see this. There's a lot of people tied for 10th in this one. Kookie, Ryan, Asir, Michael, Andy, Busan. Okay. I was 21st. It did not pan out for me. Rob, where'd you finish this week?
39th, I think. I had triple DNF. So Oscar, McLaren, and Alonso saved me a little bit. And Ferrari. I had Ferrari, McLaren constructors, but I had Isaac, I had Bortoletto, and I had Lawson. So I got -6. If they had all just scored nothing, if I'd have done the no negative chip, then I'd have been right up there if you threw another 60 points on me. But c'est la vie.
Top 3 for the season. At this point, Gavin, 44th gear first. Box 1, Patrick, and the Kurdish boy, Dayan in third. So good job, all.
So that was the British Grand Prix, and I gotta be honest, it was pretty spectacular. And also, just a shout out to all of the people on Threads or the F1 Threads community, because about a gazillion of them, including Hells, who's been on this here pod, were all in the Lando stand, and it looked absolutely mega. There were so many of them, so many photos going around. They're all living the dream. They're all there to support Lando, hoping they'll see something magical. So I think to see him bring it home, his first British Grand Prix win, looks like they had an absolute blast. So very jealous, very, very jealous, in fact. But looks like you had an amazing time. So
yeah. Awesome. I was going to say, for anyone in America who's listening, if you do want to go to a Grand Prix weekend and see what the fans are like, there's only a certain handful that you can do. Silverstone, yeah, okay, it's going to rain. You're going to be in a tent. You're going to be in a muddy field. It's going to be windy. My God, what a weekend as a spectator! And for all of those fans, what a day today! It couldn't have been any better. I'm happy to be British today.
You and me both, Paul. You and me both. But let's not make
me
the
too.
Satman feel too out there. So, yeah. Are you Dutch? So...
Yeah, well, not according to some.
Right. I think
You're
that's
Dutch.
about it, isn't it? We got... Oh, let's not even go there.
Okay, yeah, sorry. That's next time.
Half
No,
Dutch,
you've
but not really.
You've picked at this now, which is so Paul, as a Brit living in America, I do find the 4th of July a bit of a funny holiday because it's great because I get a day off work. It's great because I get to put stuff on the barbecue and drink beer. But I do also explain, like, people, when I was buying my alcohol in the liquor store, they're like, "Oh, have a great 4th," and I like joke with them and say, "Yeah, I'll enjoy celebrating you guys kicking us out. That's a great reminder." But what's funny is America as a nation loves Independence Day. They love to stick it
Love
to the
it.
Brits and
It's
show
my
that we
favorite
left you, right?
holiday.
We left you, we left the Brits. Yet, every American I ever meet when they clock the accent is desperate to link themselves to, oh, I've got Irish heritage. Oh, I've got parents from England. I've got Scottish ancestry. Like, right, pick a side. Are you happy to be free of us, or are you desperately clinging to us? It's like they can't make their
But-
mind up.
and my
Brian
answer-
clings to being Dutch.
My answer is the following. Unless you're Native American, and there are not all that many, everyone's from somewhere else. And so you kind of still identify.
You were born in America.
Hold on,
so
can I finish
identify with where
talking?
you
Can
were
I finish
born.
talking? And so you look at your lineage, and that's what a lot of people in the States say they are, is where they're from
Why?
before their family got here. And so that's just how we do it, brother. And so
Can I interject?
apparently you're trying to, so go for it. You did.
How much money, Rob, did you spend on alcohol for the 4th of July? Be honest.
I bought a case of beer, a bottle of red wine, bottle of rosé.
And how much, roughly?
$20 for a case of beer, $10 a bottle of wine. So $40.
Okay, so that means, Sapman, you only spent $20 because you only drink half of what us Brits do.
It's half now, is it? This is half.
Oh, man. Hey, listen, you want to be British, mate? You've got to raise the bar. And this is the one thing you've got to learn now is raising the bar. You've let everyone in your country down. How you can even celebrate 4th of July is a disgrace.
Everyone in my country. And with that, we are going to wrap up this week's episode. Paul, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure, guys. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
A brilliant British Grand Prix. We have 2 weekends off before we get back to racing. So that means next weekend we'll talk about something we'll figure out this week. We hope you all have a great week. Be well, be safe. Talk to you in 1 week's time.